Hi, and welcome to Season 2 of That's Ruddy Mysterious, a podcast of short tales about true mysteries. What created the Potomsky Crater? Who was involved in the 1963 Great Train Robbery? I'm not going to solve those mysteries, but they'll be interesting to learn about. I'm your host, Kelly with an I. Transcripts and references for all episodes can be found at that'sruddymysterious.wordpress.com. No apostrophe and no exclamation point. Today's tale is about Highly Superior Autobiographical Memory, or HSAM. The first case of HSAM ever discovered was found in 2006 in a woman known as AJ. The study she was in said of her, "Her memory is non-stop, uncontrollable, and automatic. AJ spends an excessive amount of time recalling her personal past with considerable accuracy and reliability." HSAM is an increased ability in certain people to remember specific details of their lives. People with HSAM often have detailed understandings of the calendar and its patterns. When it was first discovered, HSAM was called hyperthymesia. Hyperthymesia was first described by researchers at the Center for the Neurobiology of Learning and Memory at UC Irvine in 2006. Professor James McGough and his colleagues studied AJ, later identified as Jill Price. When Jill was given a date, she could tell you the day of the week it fell on and what she did on that day. Since its discovery, over 50 people have been identified as having HSAM. A 2012 study of 11 people with HSAM focused on taking MRIs. The results of those MRIs showed that HSAM participants were slightly better at recalling public and personal autobiographical events as well as the days and dates on which the events occurred. The participants' performance on standard lab tests were similar to age and sex-matched controls. HSAM participants had superior names-to-faces task performance, which was confirmed in a 2017 study. In 2013, a study showed that identification of HSAM in participants led to the possibility that some individuals may not have memory distortions, although the same study showed that HSAM participants were more likely to have memory distortions. A 2015 study showed that HSAM participants are just as susceptible to false memories as controls. A 2016 study tested forgetting rates in HSAM. The study showed that at 1 week, HSAM and controls both showed similar amounts of recall. At 1 month, the recall in HSAM participants was much greater than controls. In 2017, Laporte and colleagues administered a 3-phase study to test the memories of HSAM participants. They explored the memories for a story that induced negative feelings. The study showed that when exposed to emotional stimuli, HSAM patients didn't recall more than those with average memory. Those with HSAM were also not better at predicting how they will feel than controls were. HSAM is the opposite of severely deficient autobiographical memory, or SDAM. SDAM is the lifelong inability to vividly recall events from a first-person perspective. Joey DeGrandis was about 10 years old when his parents realized that there was something special about his memory. DeGrandis explained, "Someone would mention an event from years ago that we'd done as a family and I'd casually say, 'Oh, that was a Monday,' or 'that happened on June 20th. My mom would cross-reference it with old calendars she'd kept, and they were a little dumbfounded at how accurate I was." DeGrandis saw James McGough as an adult. McGough began studying HSAM in 2000 when Jill Price reached out to him in an email. She explained to him that whenever she saw a date, she would automatically go back in time to that day and remember where she was and what she was doing, as well as what day it fell on. She described this as a non-stop, uncontrollable, and totally exhausting. Dr. McGough did an interview on the television show 60 Minutes. Afterward, he received over 600 calls and emails from people who thought they might have HSAM. Only 60 of those people were identified as having the ability. McGough said that showed how rare HSAM was. Out of millions who knew of the ability, only a small number actually fit the criteria. Research has shown that HSAM patients tend to have obsessive traits. McGough explained, some subjects like Price focused on orderliness, some were germ avoidant, and some had hobbies that involved intense, focused, and sustained efforts. It is currently unknown if HSAM caused these traits or if both HSAM and the obsessive traits are caused by something else. As with the average person, the memories of those who experience HSAM are not always entirely accurate. However, people with HSAM are more likely to remember things like phone numbers or faces. This is not the same as photographic memory. DeGrandis explained that he is not great with names or mundane details like whether or not he brushed his teeth or where he placed his keys. He said, "My mind is always moving and filled with so many other things, and maybe that contributes, ironically, to a poorer short-term memory." Almost 20 years after identifying the first case, there's still a lot of research that needs to be done into HSAM, but progress is being made all the time. One study had a set of twins in the study. One twin had HSAM and the other did not. The same study had a lot of young people, one as young as 8 years old. This proves that not only adults possess the ability. It's not something that is learned or rehearsed. Another MRI study showed that there is evidence of very real differences between the brains of people who have the ability and those who do not. McGough is hopeful that this MRI study will provide more information regarding the ability. People with HSAM display intelligence in the average range, but MRIs have shown anatomical differences between HSAM participants and the average person. People with HSAM have greater gray matter volumes in the left hemisphere than average. In the right hemisphere, the right peripheral cortex is smaller than controls. They also have bigger subcortical volumes of the right amygdala. However, some MRIs show no difference between HSAM participants and controls. 3 studies showed greater hippocampus connectivity with other areas. A 2018 study showed the left hippocampus had greater connectivity with the left hemisphere regions. What causes highly superior autobiographical memory? Why do some people have greater recall of events and others have even poorer recall than average? What do you think? Thanks for listening to today's episode of That's Ruddy Mysterious. I'm your host, Kelly with an I. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a review and follow That's Ruddy Mysterious to be updated about new episodes. Tune in next Tuesday for another thought-provoking tale.